Hi class, today we're going to be looking at Chapter 6, Comprehensive Problem 1. I'm going to share my screen with you. And what you should be seeing is a Schedule B form. And so what I want to do right now is I want to read the problem to you so you'll know where the information's coming from. This again is Comprehensive Problem 1 from Chapter 6. Richard and Christine McCarthy have a 19-year-old son that was born on 10/2/2000. Social Security number is 555-55-1212. Jack, who is a full-time student at the University of Key West, is a Jack, who is the son, is a full-time student at the University of Key West. Years ago, the McCarthys shifted a significant amount of investments to Jack's name. In 2019, Jack received forms 1099 interest and 1099 dividends that reported the following. The Tandy Corporation bonds interest was $11,300. So what they did in this problem is the parents shifted some of their income to the child. And so the child, who is Jack McCarthy, is going to have to file a tax return, and they're going to have to file Schedule B, and you're going to have to list where the interest came from. And it came from the Tandy Corporation, and the amount was $11,300. That's the only amount of interest for this particular problem. And so what we would end up doing is go on down to line 2, which just says to add up what you had on line 1. The amount is still $11,300. And then there was nothing that we would enter on line 3. It didn't apply to this particular problem. And so we go on to line 4, which says subtract from line 3 from line 2 and enter the result on form 1040. So there was nothing on line 3. So when we subtract these, we end up with 11,300. This goes to your 1040 form. Okay. So the 1040 form that we're doing is the 2019 form, which will go along with what the textbook is saying. Even though this has 2020 on this Schedule B form did not change from 2019 to 2020. So we're still using this, but where it says here to put it on line 2B, that just happens to be the same line that was also for the 1040 form from 2019. As you probably know by now, the 1040 form from 2019 and 2020 changed. So, but in this case, line 2B is still going to be the same amount. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to show that to you when I pull up my 1040 for 2019, line 2B. So you see here, this is where they're getting the 11,300 is from that interest schedule. So let me get you back to the interest schedule. That amount, 11,300 here, goes on your 1040 on line 2B. The second part of Schedule B has to do with writing down or recording your ordinary dividends. And in this problem, they also had some ordinary dividends from the same company, the Tandy Corporation. So they must have had some stock in the Tandy Corporation. And the dividends that they earned were $3,400. That was given in your problem. And so that was the only dividend that was noted in the problem. So we're going to skip through line 5 and go on to line 6, and the total amount is $3,400, which would go to the 1040 form, line 3B. So I'm going to switch back for just a minute to your 1040 form, line 3B. is 3,400. That's where we're getting this. So line 2B and 3B came from your Schedule B, your interest and dividend schedule. And I flip back to Schedule B here so you can see it again. But that's all we had to do for Schedule B. But there are some boxes down here that might apply to you, and I just checked these as no, they didn't really apply to this particular problem. So we're through with Schedule B. It also told you in the problem that the dividends are not qualified dividends. And it says, in addition, Jack works part-time as a waiter in an upscale seafood restaurant in Miami, Florida. His 2019 W-2 form reported wages of $12,800. So I'm going to share with you where those wages would go. They would go on the 1040 form for 2019. It goes on line 1 at 12,800. This is the information that we would fill out for Jack McCarthy. This is his home address. All of this information is given in the problem. So line 1 is 12,800. That comes from your W-2 form. Line 2B comes from Schedule B that we just went over, and line 3B comes from Schedule B that we just went over. And then none of the other things applied to us till we got down to 7B, which is adding up these three items to get 27,500. This is the total of your income. It is also the total of your adjusted gross income on line 8B. Then on line 9, we would put the standard deduction of 12,200. This child is single, and the standard deduction for single is 12,200. So that 12,200 on this form goes right here. And then there was nothing about qualified business income. And so you go on to line 11A, which is adding lines 9 and 10 together. So these two would be combined to get 11A. And then you're going to find your taxable income by subtracting line 11A from line 8B. So subtract 12,200 from 27,500, and that will give you 15,1300, which is your taxable income. On the next part of your problem that is written in your textbook, it says, in spite of his fairly large income, the McCarthys provide over 50% of his support and claim Jack as a dependent in 2019. And then they give you Jack's mailing address and his social security number, and they say to use form 1040 Schedule B that we just filled out, but we also have to use form 8615 from the instructions to compute Jack's 2019 amount of income tax. So we need to talk about form 8615. And this form is for tax for certain children who have unearned income. You need to know what the definition of unearned income is. Basically, it's income that you have not really worked for, that you just earn through interest or dividends. So when the parents transferred the bond interest and the dividends from the Tandy Corporation to the child, that amount is your unearned income of 14,700. So in other words, this 14,700 is made up of 11,300 in interest from the Tandy Corporation plus 3,400 in dividends from the Tandy Corporation. This would be lines 2, A and B on Form 1040 added together will give you the 14,700. This is your unearned income. Then you move to line 2, and it says if the child did not itemize deductions, and they didn't, they took the standard deduction, you're going to enter 2,200. So this is a given number for line 2. You enter 2,200 there. Then you're going to subtract line 2 from line 1. When we subtract line 2 from line 1, that leaves us with line 3, which is 12,500. It also tells you if this is 0 or less, stop and don't complete the rest of the return. Obviously, it's more than 0, so we're going to keep going. On line 4, it says enter the child's taxable income from your 1040 form. And your taxable income from 1040 is 15,300. That's the amount from line 11B on Form 1040 for 2019. If you're using the 2020 form, it's probably on a different line, but I've asked you to use the 2019 form. And so this 15,300 is the taxable income for this child. And that is entered on line 4 of Form 8615. Then on line 5, it tells you of Form 8615 to enter the smaller of line 3 or line 4. And obviously the smaller is line 3. So we're going to put 12,500 here. Now, I left this part out because you were only assigned to do comprehensive problem 1. You don't have this information in comprehensive problem 1. So I'm going to move to part 3, where they're subtracting line 5 from line 4. So go up here to line 5, subtract it from line 4, and that'll give you 2,800. And so I had to look up 2,800 on the tax tables, and the amount of tax for a single person is $281. That comes from the tax table. Then you're going to add lines 13, which was 0. We didn't have anything on line 13, and 15 together, which is 281. So you just bring that 281 down on line 16. Then on line 17, we're going to enter the tax on the amount based on line 4 and the child's filing status, which is single. Line 4 was 15,300. We're going to look that up on our tax tables, and your tax tables are given to you on Blackboard, but they're also in your textbook. They're much clearer in the textbook. I had to use a textbook for this in Appendix A. So if you go to the end of your textbook in Appendix A, you can find the tax tables where this is looked up on. You're going to look up the amount for line 4, which was 15,300, and the amount is 3,281. And then on line 18, you're going to enter the larger of line 16 or 17, which is 3281. This 3281 is the tax that has to be entered on your 1040 form. So we're going to go to our 1040 form for 2019, and we're going to go to line 12A, and we're going to enter 3281 on 12A, and it would also be listed on 12B. That 3281 came from form 8615. There was nothing that we would enter on line 13B. So on line 14, we're subtracting 13B from 12B, and that leaves us with 3281 again. There was nothing that we entered on line 15. So line 16 is 3281 again. 3281 and zeros, 3281. And then your federal income tax, this 1,080 comes from the W-2 form that's listed in your textbook for this problem. And actually they told you the amount was 1,080. It's given in your problem. So he contributed 1,080 to federal income taxes already, but he owed a total amount of 3281. So the difference between those is 2,201, which he still owes. This is the amount of tax that he owes. There were no payments in, and so line 19 was still the 1,080, and the difference between 1,080 and 3281 means that he still owes 2201. So let's review. Let me tell you that this was for 2020 form 8615. Now you might have noticed, and I made an announcement for this in the class, that in Blackboard where Dr. Worthy entered the amounts, she was using the 2019 form, which changed in 2020. But she also put the 2020 form out on Blackboard. So I was just going to leave it as it is because I know there's a lot of confusion about this class. And I wanted to make sure that you know that the 2020 form 8615 changed. It has more lines on it. And so you're going to be using the 2020 form. So these are the answers that I have added to what Dr. Worthy already had out there for you. What you need to remember is that this bottom line, 3281, is what's transferred to your 2019 Form 1040. It goes right there. And that's the key to the success for this particular problem. So I'm going to stop here because we're really through with this particular problem. And I'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.